Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is James Salvatore, and today I have something interesting here for you. This is basically the first all-electric supercar that is actually cool. I mean, for years now, we've had these electric cars that, you know, yeah, they're fast, but they don't handle, or they don't look cool, or they kind of look cheap. No, this is Porsche's answer here. This is the all-new 2020 Taycan Turbo. And this, in my opinion, is where the future of supercars are going. But before we get into the video, be sure to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe and turn on the bell notification to be alerted when I post future videos. On the channel, I do everything from new car reviews, classic cars, exotics, and everything in between. I mean, just take a look at this room full of cars. I got a lot of videos here to make for you, so be sure that you stick around for them. And with that, let's get into the video. In my opinion, with this car, I think what Porsche has done here is paved the way for future electric vehicles. I think that this car is crucial to the history of the automobile because, you know, this is really a turning point in the automobile world. You know, where everything's going electric and going, you know, more economical and, you know, function before fun. This says, no, forget that. You can have it all. You can have a luxurious car. You can have a car that you could take to the track. You can have a car that you could drive in all 4 seasons. And you know what? You want it to be luxurious and built well too? Well, you can have that too. Now there's 3 models of the Taycan. You have the entry-level Taycan, which is the 4S, starting at about $104,000 before options, which is pretty good. They're giving you a fairly affordable starting point for this car, you know, when you consider other vehicles comparing to it, like say, you know, Mercedes S-Class or, you know, a Panamera or something. This isn't too out of reach. Then you have the Taycan Turbo if you really want a lot more power, a little bit better range, starting at $150,000 before options. And then you have the range topping model, the Taycan Turbo S, starting at $185,000 before options. And that is by far the craziest one. That one, you know, all these cars have a certain amount of horsepower before they go into boost mode, but in over boost mode with the Taycan Turbo S, you get 750 horsepower instantly, like that, when you hit the gas. I mean, just think about that. That's crazy. However, the Turbo is no slouch, and honestly, I think the Turbo is the best value in my opinion because you're not really getting too much more power with the Turbo S model. This has 670 horsepower in overboost mode, and in normal driving it stays around 616 horsepower, which is pretty much all the power you'll ever need. I mean, let's be real, there's only so much power you could use on public roads. Now what sets this car apart from other electric vehicles, say like the Tesla, is the battery architecture. This uses 800 volt battery architecture where the Tesla uses 400 volt battery architecture. Now where you see the difference between the two has to deal with charging. Now this car will charge much faster than a Tesla. 800 volt battery technology is the future of things. However, you know, it's kind of unproven. Nobody's really using it yet. Tesla uses it because it's more reliable. However, Porsche made a bold step and just went right for it, and they pulled it off. Now as quick as this car is, it's just as important to stop, and what's good to know is that Porsche offers optional carbon ceramic brakes for this car. However, that's not the only party trick when it comes to suspension. This has a fully adaptive suspension and optional rear wheel steering. Let's take a second to take in the design here. I mean, if you look at this thing, it's very familiar, it's very Porsche-like, however, it's very different at the same time. Since it's an electric vehicle, you no longer have the need for a front grille anymore. And for the first time ever, they've strayed away from the rounded headlight design in favor of this rectangular design. I like it. It's very futuristic. However, if you take a look here and you notice these humps, it's very 911-like. And I like that because, you know, when you're sitting in the car, it feels like you're driving a 911 still. And, you know, hearing some interviews with the chief engineers of this car, that was their goal, to make this feel as much like a 911 as possible. Now these rims, in my opinion, are pretty cool because it has a very different, distinct design for the Taycan. I mean, you have some spokes that are cut out, but a lot of them aren't. They probably did it for aerodynamic purposes. However, I just think it's a cool design. Now I want to show you the door handles on this car because they're no ordinary door handles. Now, other cars have this. However, I just think it adds to the overall futuristic feel of the car. When you approach the car, obviously it has keyless go. You just slide your hand under the door handle and all the handles pop out. When you lock the car, the door handles slide back into the body, which I think is pretty cool. Another thing that I like is they've made the rear diffuser here very aggressive looking. So it still kind of resembles a normal car. You know, it doesn't really depart from what we're used to seeing. And I think that's why I like this car so much, because it looks like a normal car but gives you everything that you need out of an electric car. One thing I want to touch upon real quick is charging, because obviously with an electric car, that's an important thing. So with the Taycan Turbo, you should expect to get about between 200 and 250 miles if you're driving it nicely and not aggressive. Now you can charge the vehicle on both sides. It has two charging ports, one for direct current and the other for alternating current. Now you can charge this thing at a number of places. Pretty much everywhere you go now has an electric vehicle charging. However, keep in mind, if you're running low, a full charge can take up to 11 hours. So make sure you plan that. One neat thing that Porsche has integrated into the navigation software is power management. And what that is basically when you go to select a destination in your navigation, right, it'll actually calculate the distance and tell you if you can make it there or not, or give you, you know, areas where you could stop along the way to recharge a little bit. I just think that's overall a smart design, and no other auto manufacturers are doing that right now. It just goes to show you how Porsche is thinking ahead. Next, I want to show you how practical this vehicle is. Starting with rear legroom. Now, I'm 6'1", and I've set my seat up to a comfortable driving position where I'm not compromising at all. Now I'm going to show you how I fit behind myself to demonstrate if you could fit full-size adults in the rear seat of this car. Getting into the rear of the Taycan is kind of difficult. However, once you're there, legroom isn't bad, but not great. You have plenty of headroom, so I would say you can expect to fit somebody who's about 6'4" in here, no taller than that. All right, now let's take a look at how this thing does on trunk space. So you can open the trunk one of two ways. You have the comfort access feature where you simply wave your foot underneath the trunk and it opens, or you have this button right here that you just press. Now this car has two trunks. In the rear trunk, you have 12.9 cubic feet of cargo storage. However, if that's not enough for you, if you walk around here with me, there's a little handle on the top of the seat. And you just pull that and pull down, and then with the seats folded down, you get a little more space. To open the front of the car, you need to come in and go to the touch screen here, this button, and you press it. And the trunk pops. To pop it, you just go to the front, and there's a little lever you push to the left, and there you go. You popped it. And you have a whole whopping 2.8 cubic feet of cargo storage. Now let's move on to the inside and talk about some of the features of the interior. Getting into the interior of the Taycan, the first thing you notice is the level of quality of the materials used and the attention to detail here. I mean, seeing as this is one of the first electric vehicles that the company has made, it was important to make sure that this felt like the premium Porsche experience it was meant to be. And it definitely lives up to that. The first thing you notice is that you have a panorama roof that stretches, it's a single piece of glass that stretches the entire length of the car. And it really adds to an open air premium feel. Another thing is there's leather everywhere, high quality Nappa leather, not cheap leather or leather that's real leather, because you know I'm a stickler for leather. And they didn't even cheap out on the bottom of the door cards. Usually in cars, you know, the upper dash and the mid dash will be stitched in leather, and the top of the door cards will be stitched in leather, and then they'll put hard touch plastics at the bottom. They didn't cheap out here. There's leather everywhere, I assure you that. And the entire ceiling is lined with Alcantara. Porsche went for a little bit of a different design here. In the age where most cars are going for these rectangular screens that don't really look like traditional gauge clusters anymore, Porsche has kind of done a good job at integrating the familiar, the old, with the new. I mean, they created this nice LCD driver's information gauge cluster, and I like that they kept to the traditional Porsche design of having the tachometer in the center as well as your speed. Even though you don't really have a tachometer in this car anymore, you have a power consumption meter. A little bit something to get used to, but that's okay. Next, I want to go over with you the customization of the driver's information center. If you take a look, you just flip the dial and you can go between your multiple drive modes. You have range mode, which is kind of your eco mode. You have normal, you have sport plus where the suspension drops down, and then you have individual mode where you can customize your own driver settings. Now, besides that, how you navigate things is by clicking this button. You could switch between different screens, switch between the information there, like your traffic signs, your G-force, how your all-wheel drive is split and whatnot. And then if you bump over to the center cluster, you can see your power meter, your map, which is pretty cool. You have the extended map feature where you can make the whole navigation, where you can make the whole driver's information center turn into a map, or reduced, which is very simple and just doesn't overwhelm you with information. Now, one cool thing to note here is that Porsche still left the start stop button on the side here, except now it's like a power button when you turn on a computer instead of the start stop. Now let's focus on the infotainment. You have a lot going on here. You have a lot of electric vehicle stuff, and then you have a lot of normal Porsche stuff too. Let's get into it. The lower screen controls all your sub menus here. If you want to get into your phone, you want to get into your music, your media settings, you want to get into the map or driver settings, you have that. Now, the bottom of the screen here kind of works similar to a trackpad. It's funny how you have a touch screen to control a touch screen. One thing that I like about this is it's super responsive and it gives you haptic feedback, which is nice. However, honestly, if I had this car, I would probably just be using the touch screen up here and just scrolling through things. Now, another neat thing here that I saw is that you can have what's called pre-cooled or preheated, and you could literally make different driver's profiles where you could set timers to start your car and have it literally heat itself up in the morning or cool itself down. Or like say you're getting out of the office, you could set different points in the day where you want the vehicle to start itself and warm itself up. This way when you get to it, it's ready to go for you. Let's move on to climate control settings, because there's an interesting thing going on here. Because if you look at the climate vents, there's no traditional adjustment, and for most of you people, that will throw you off. It certainly threw me off when I first got into the car, until I saw this. You can literally control the air vents from the touch screen. I mean, like, it's really cool, different. I don't know if it would get annoying after a while. However, I kind of like it. It's definitely very futuristic, and it's a nice way to kind of control the airflow throughout the car. You can close vents by doing that, open them. You can choose to have focused air distribution, individual air distribution. You have air ionization in this car, which will purify the air and add different scents. And you can even control the vent positioning in the rear from the front touchscreen as well. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go for a drive. Alright, so first opinions getting into the Taycan. This thing is really, and I mean really, fast. I mean, just go. This is my first time driving an electric vehicle. I know, right? How privileged am I to be driving this as my first electric vehicle? And I could say that it's very different from driving a traditional car. However, I like it. I mean, the driver's position in this car is excellent. It feels like a 911. There are so many things that are different about this driving experience. If you're used to driving sports cars, I think the first thing that really hits you is there's no changing of gears. You don't have a manual transmission. You just have a 2-speed automatic, and you don't even feel the gears change at all. Like, it's weird not having paddle shifters here, gotta say. However, it's not a bad thing. You get this really cool noise in the car that kind of sounds like you're in the Tron movie. I mean, honestly, this car feels like it's from Tron. These big humps that remind you of a 911 out over the hood to help you place the car, and the sound, and just how minimalistic the interior is in general. It's just so different from anything else you'll ever experience. Now, there's a few different driving modes. You have normal, which raises the car up, and it's silent. You get into it, it's got nice progressive throttle response. It's not just, like on or off. And then you have Sport, which is a little bit more aggressive, but Sport Plus turns on that cool futuristic Tron sound. And honestly, it kind of makes the whole deal. You really need to have that sound on. Now, there's a few different suspension settings too. I have it in Sport Plus, and I'll say that it corners very flat. It's firm, but it doesn't beat you up. And I think that's important in a luxury car because, first and foremost, this still is a luxury car. Now, the brakes are something to get used to. I know that, electric cars have regen and whatnot, so, maybe I'm feeling a little bit of that. But overall, not bad. I mean, it feels like, a normal modern day car, except for the fact that if you dump the pedal, you literally have to hold on for dear life.
That's insane, dude.
Oh my god. But cruising around town, it feels composed. It's quiet. It's refined. It's exactly what you expect out of the Porsche experience. I mean, I've ridden in a Tesla before. I haven't driven a Tesla. And coming from a Tesla into something like this, just don't compare them. Just don't do it. This is so far above a Tesla. It really is, in every way. This car is unlike anything else to drive. Yes, there are faster cars than this, but there are few cars where you get the power delivery like this raw and like this in your face.
Oh my god. You gotta experience it to know.
Oh, everything, is under control. You don't feel like anything's gonna get out of control. I mean, like, this is perfect to me. Like, if I had to get an electric car, I'd want it to be like this. After driving one of these, it really changes your perspective on things. I mean, for years I've been saying, I don't want electric cars. I didn't want the change to happen. But after seeing this, I still love the sound of a screaming V8 or V12. But, this is special too. And I'm just glad that, Porsche set out to make something electric feel special. Overall, I mean, I recommend this car to anybody who's really looking for something that's exotic, something that's different, and, something that's a glimpse into the future. I have nothing but good things to say about this car. Porsche, you knocked it out of the park with this one. Well, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it for you. If you haven't done so already, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to be alerted when I post future videos. Before we go though, I'd like to say a special thanks to my friends at Porsche of Fairfield, Connecticut for making this video possible. They're a real awesome group of people. Be sure to check out their website. I'm going to include a link in the description below. They got a lot of rare high-end models. Say, for instance, they got a Porsche Speedster. They got a lot of GT3s. So if you're in the market for one, be sure to check them out. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.